We'll start sharing. All
Yeah,
right.
this is the Iris and Ginger show, so we'll let y'all have it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Okay, just gonna take us a minute to get there. Okay. All right, so can you see one slide or two slides? Eye test.
Just
You're
one.
good.
One, perfect. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Communications Committee meeting. Today's date, our beautiful classic logo for National Egg Agents. So these are the things that we'll talk about today. And yeah, I think that I don't need to read through all these, but we'll just go through them bit by bit. And I think the main time that we'll talk with anyone has any questions will be at the end for the membership open forum. So you could just take some notes if there's some things you want to comment on, and we'll do that kind of at the end. So these are the National Communication Committee members. Technically, it's not the awards committee. Sorry about that. Brittany Council Morton is on family leave, so we are filling in for her and wish her well. And then we've got Daniel Leonard, who's the Southern Regional Vice Chair. Incoming will be Sarah Scott in, I think, 2027. Erica Bergstrom is the North Central Region Vice Chair, and the incoming will be Sarah DeBoer. Ginger Fenton is the Northeast Region Vice Chair, and then I'm the Western Region Vice Chair. So then Daniel's going to take over the next couple of slides to talk about our committee structure and process.
Right,
Just let me know, yeah, when you want me to advance.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be anything y'all don't know already, but just kind of go over what we do, our basic structure. Obviously, we have our state committees. All of you have probably been a state chair at some time, or at least involved in your state committee. And then you get above that is our regionals. So state will select a state winner in each category. You'll forward those to the regional winners. Or the regional chairs, and those of you who are coming into regionals, you will then be tasked. It's a little bit easier of a job than the state chairs, to be honest, because you get to select three. You don't have to pick a winner. The regional guys have the easiest job. You don't have to pick a winner. All right. So the national chair has to pick a winner. The state chairs have to pick a winner. Regional does not. You just pick the best three. That's all that your judging committee has to do. So I found that the regional judging committees like that a little bit. There's like no pressure. Just pick the top three. You don't have to hurt anybody's feelings, and they're all really good. There's a lot of really good stuff, and it can be hard to pick the best one. So you pick those three. And then if you're the national chair, it will show up in your kind of dashboard, all of those regional finalists. So it can be up to 12. Obviously, three from each of the four regions. And then from that, the National Judging Committee will select four national finalists, and one of those will be the national winner. And this year, we're going to do it kind of the same way Brittany did last year to get a little drama at the awards show at AMPIC. We'll not announce who the national winner is. So when I select the national finalist online, hopefully, and I'll give y'all an update to where the judging process is, but hopefully this week, you'll only be able to see national finalists. There will not be a national winner selected. We'll announce those at the awards show so that, it'll be a little bit fun, a little bit of drama there. And so basically what we do, our purpose for our awards is to recognize specific work that extension agents do. So we only are extension agents. We try not to get any past that. So we don't do awards with staff or with necessarily state specialists. Although some states kind of treat state specialists a little bit different, but we mostly are aimed at what extension agents do communication wise, and it really does need to be your work. This committee is under the Program Recognition Council. So there's several committees under that, and we are probably the biggest. Iris will go ahead and advance, I think. Trying to make sure I didn't miss anything I wanted to touch on. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the judging process. I know, how do you know the regional winners? When do we announce the national winners? This is a perfect segue. I love Iris's picture there. I know this year has been a little bit frustrating. It's been maybe a little slow. Brittany Council Morton, our national chair, did go out on maternity leave kind of suddenly before the baby came earlier than she expected it to, which is a great thing for her, but not the best thing for us. So we are kind of put on the spot a little bit, but we've adapted. So regional judging went fine, like normal. I gave the national judge, I had to come up with my own national judging committee. So that took a bit. Just so y'all know, kind of peek behind the curtain, to make it as unbiased as possible, I requested all of the regional vice chairs, Iris, Ginger, Erica, obviously myself, to submit a couple of judges, 2 or 3 judges, maybe 4 if you could think of 4 really good ones, so that we really distributed the judging all the way around the country and there wouldn't be any regional bias. And then from there, in my spreadsheet, I made sure that each category had at least 2 judges judging it, and that each category had, each judge was from a different place. So both judges in a category, say newsletter, one would be from like the West and one would be from the Northeast or from the South or whatever. So no category had 2 judges from the same region judging it. So just to prevent any potential regional bias, and just going through my spreadsheet and putting numbers in, I have not seen any of that. So I think the awards are pretty well spread out. And there's great work that happens all over the country. So I was really happy to see that the bias didn't really exist, but I was glad that we put that fail safe in to make sure that didn't happen. So when do we announce national winners? I'm waiting on scores from 3 judges. I'm not going to name names here in case any of y'all know any of them, but out of the 13 or 14 judges that I had on my national judging committee, I've gotten scores back from 10, and I'm missing 3. They had until today to get them back. I gave a couple of them an extension. I asked most of them to have their scores back May the 1st. A couple of them had conflicts, so I gave them an extension until today. So I hope to have scores uploaded tonight or tomorrow at the latest. So I will send the regional vice chairs an email letting them know that's happened. Of course, it'll be uploaded on the website. If somebody happens to be checking that, they'll see. But if not, you'll get a notification from your regional vice chair to the state chairs, and then the state chairs can disseminate that how they will. That's how we'll let people know. But I anticipate national finalists being selected within the next 48 hours or so. So that's pretty good. All right, next slide. Is there another one, or is that it for me? Hopefully that's it. I don't have anything else. You want to take this, Iris?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take this. So for people who may be watching this right now or the recording, we really encourage people to get involved with these vice chair positions. And so if you haven't had a position before, starting with the state organization and being the communications chair there will really help. And then jumping in when these terms come open. So in 2026, the Northeast vice chair will become open and the West vice chair, and then down to 2028, you can see when those ones will be available to apply. And you apply through the NACAA website. And so there's a little bit of preparation and application there. We acknowledge the communications awards at a luncheon at the national meeting. So we'll be in Billings this year, which will be wonderful. It's invite only because we won't be able to accommodate just as many people as want to come. So it's for the state winners, regional and national finalists, and everyone needs to register for the luncheon in their registration when you're registering for the AIM pick. So we split that luncheon with the poster award committee. So that's fun too, to kind of see all the winners that way. The checks will be distributed to the national winners at that luncheon once those winners are announced. And then certificates are distributed to the national finalists and the winners there as well. We used to provide the state certificates at that luncheon, but it was a little too complicated. So we will send those out or hand those out to the state chairs at the conference, and then they'll mail them out around their state when they get back. So it sounds a little more complicated, but it makes the national meeting more simplified.
Iris, could I chime in on the luncheon real quick before we move?
Yes, please do that. Yes.
Yeah, so on the luncheon, so of course we we'll have all of our regional vice chairs will be there. National finalists will all be required to be there. And again, I know this is late. Hopefully they were planning to go to AMPIC anyway, but if they weren't, they'll need to make arrangements to at least be there on, is this Tuesday this year? Is that right?
I think so.
I think it's Tuesday.
I think it's Monday. I think it's Monday.
Monday. Connie, Monday. So they'll need
Thank
to
you,
plan to
Connie.
be there at least on Monday. You know, they don't have to stay the whole week necessarily, but if you're a national finalist, you will need, if you hadn't already made plans to attend AMPIC, you'll need to do so and plan to be there on Monday for the lunch. After that, obviously, we'll share some tickets with the poster folks, but we're going to have quite a bit left over. I was planning on distributing that in the following order. First, you know, make a request to the potential spouses of the national finalists that may be in attendance that want to go, and we'll fill those. And then from there, we'll probably begin filling regional finalists, state chairs, so on and so forth. But we'll go in that manner. We'll probably fill most of it up, though, with national finalists and their spouses. I doubt there would be a lot left after that, but we'll go in that order. But it is an invite only. You can't sign up on your registration, anything like that. So if you don't get an invite, don't feel bad. It's a limited number of seats, and there's a big number of people that are required to be there.
So just to clarify, Robin has asked in the chat, can state committee chairs attend? And that would only be if there's room. Is that correct, Daniel?
So one thing I'll say, in the past, there will be like, for instance, there was a group last year that had like 3 or 4 people on the awards. And we did, all of them weren't invited. It was the main person, I think, it was invited, and then somebody's wife wanted to attend that didn't receive an invitation, and we did allow them to come in the room. They just didn't get a lunch. So if you have somebody, because you know we pay for a certain amount of meal seats there, so if you do have somebody you want to see, you know, we might can let you in to look and clap when they get their award, but just keep in mind we do have a certain number of plates that have been paid for, and once those are filled up, those are filled.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Connie, do you have anything to add on the luncheon?
No, that's right. Go with the national winners, finalists, spouses, and then there's also with the poster aspect. We have so many tickets overall.
Yeah, I would say too that you should stay for the whole week. just friendly disagreement with Daniel.
No, I'm saying you should have already registered. Like, that should have been done a month ago. You should always plan to go to AMPIC. It's a great time. It's the best conference any of us can go to, in my opinion. You should plan to go. If for some reason you have not done that and you can't afford a full trip or whatever, you can't make time for it, you have to be there on Monday if you want to win.
Great. Okay, so just jumping into the award criteria, we'll go category by category, and this is something we do annually to kind of evaluate where we're at. Obviously, there's new technology coming in every year, and so we just kind of want to make sure we're up to date with everything like that. All of those deadlines match up. March 15th, that's the deadline for the journal articles and for the communication awards, and so that is all in here. So for the category feedback, we'll just go through hopefully fairly quickly for these. And I just wanted to start off with abstracts and categories. So if you are new to how the communication awards work or reviewing, there are 2 places to look for instructions for the abstract. So there's a general guidance about what should be in the abstract, and the County Agent magazine has an example abstract in it. So that's actually a 3rd place. And then in the category description, there will be abstract instructions as well. So savvy applicants will look at all 3 of those places to make sure that their abstracts are just at 100% perfect.
Yeah.
So, and then one of the things we faced this year was that some people would submit an application for an award in various categories. And the way the categories are designed, if it fits in one, such as a newsletter, it's not going to fit as a fact sheet. So we are going to try to refine those rules, hopefully, to just make that more clear. Some of the categories do say that, but that's just something that we do want to work on. So Daniel, did you have a comment in on this one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing I just want to say is that while we don't want to get bogged down too bad, if y'all have comments as we go, you saw stuff in your states or whatever, as we go through these categories and stuff, feel free to chime in, even though we'll have some time at the end for different questions and stuff. But I think the specific one that brought this up this year was from my region, and it was somebody that had submitted. The state chair should have caught this, but it got to the regional level. Somebody had submitted in publication and learning module the exact same thing, and we're not going to let that win. However, there was nothing in the rules that specifically really prohibited that, so we're going to look at changing that going forward.
I guess I have one question there. If it was a bigger curriculum and then it has authors from several different, there's several authors into that larger curriculum, but that one author, I'm going to say myself, says, hey, I did this one particular part of that online curriculum, I'm going to say, can I pull that out, for instance, and put it in another category? And I'm not the original online curriculum author. Like, I am not the one that submitted for that.
Well, that's a great question. So I think what it would be is if that piece of the curriculum was, say, like a fact sheet or something like that, you could submit it as a standalone piece. It just depends on what that standalone piece is. You would have to find another spot for it. It could be an audio recording. It could be a PowerPoint with script. So yeah, so I would say yes, as long as you can find another slot for it. Now, if it is something that we don't have one of the categories for, I mean, why don't you ask this question again too? Let's talk about it again once we've gone through the categories and see if the piece that you're thinking of, if it doesn't fit, let's see if we could either adjust the category to accommodate it, because we can do that, or if we could, we possibly could add a category if there's something, that we haven't seen yet, but we need to add it. So those are possibilities. It does take a bit of work on our part, but go ahead, Robin. Yeah.
And I guess I understand that whatever I would pull from that larger project would have to fit into a category. I get that. Yeah. I just didn't know if it could be in that larger.
I would think so. What we ran in was the exact thing, like the exact document submitted in multiple places, which not specifically prohibited, but should be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll revisit that in a few minutes. Okay, so the first category is audio recording. One of the things that we might want to add to these instructions is that it should say is that you are supposed to select the specific 15 minutes. So if you have, a 40-minute recording and and the part you want us to judge starts at 20 minutes, then we need to go to 35 minutes. So we need that specific instruction for the judges to listen to minutes 20 to 35. So that needs to be in the abstract. And it could be, so we say audio recording, that sounds a little analog, but that's because there's lots of different types of audio recordings. It could be radio, podcast, it could be, some other, something else. So we've kind of left it open-ended that way. For published photo, one of the things that we have seen is sometimes a photo will get published in a newspaper. And then if you don't have the login for that newspaper, you can't see the published photo. So that photo needs to be accessible so we can pass that on to the judges. Our judges are not necessarily and usually are not part of NACAA. So we just are passing this on to them, asking them to rank everything and then give those scores back to us. So they don't necessarily have access to our website or to the local newspaper where this was published, for example. So that's one of the specifics of that category.
Iris, I always remember your coworker Ron Patterson, our previous national chair, told it, "Don't make my judges work." He's like, make it as least annoying as possible. So please make it as least annoying as possible.
Yeah, when people submit at the last minute, I think they forget. So this is why it's good to try to submit early, like March 1st, and then have your state judge, state chair look at these things and possibly get back to you. So if there's any questions, we have that wiggle room to kind of adjust things. Once all this stuff goes down March 15th, the door is closed. We cannot go back and change anything or add any links or what have you. So we need all those links to work, and we need everyone to try to have time to go through their own checklist, rereading all these instructions and make sure they've done it correctly. So this year we saw some awards presented in this category 3, computer generated presentation with script, which is like a PowerPoint, or it should be probably a PDF with that script. below it, but someone submitted it with a video recording, and it says specifically in these instructions, do not submit a video recording of the presentation. So that's just sort of an example where people need to kind of check over. And maybe there's a way we could make these instructions simpler and more clear for people, but every year it does seem like people miss some of these subtle instructions.
Can I add to Iris before we move on
Yes,
from that?
please do.
Just, I have noticed you mentioned making the judges work. Depends on the format that this one is submitted. This seems to be the one where my judges have the most difficulty finding the script. Sometimes, if it's not the PDF, like you mentioned in the notes pages with the PowerPoint, some people put the, and the little bubbles and then that you roll over and the script pops up. Some of the judges have had either a hard time with not having the right software to access that, or just even figuring out quite how to do that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep. Okay, and then category 4 is the event promotional package. It says submit up to 3 methods. I have seen this where people will submit 5. You may get a state award for that, but you're going to get disqualified at the regional level because we've said specifically 3 or less. It could be less, but usually the winners will have those 3 excellent pieces. One of the things we've talked about in the past is that you cannot use pieces that are university branded or designed by a professional graphic designer. It needs to be the educator's work, or specifically letting us know how the author's contribution to each piece, was done. So, and then also how it was used to promote the event. But generally speaking, that needs to be the agent or educator's work. For category 5, this one also has seemed to confuse people as far as submitting their published scan from the newspaper or wherever it was printed or published, and then also the original manuscript, the final, not a draft, the final manuscript before that got submitted and printed. So we want to see those 2. And I think that just goes back to having that evidence that that person was the original author of it, as well as the published version. Okay. And then the way that category 6 works together with, say, like newsletter, fact sheet. So if you think of those as kind of a continuum, the feature story article is going to be a little longer, and then a publication is going to be like a journal article, more professional. So we kind of have this continuum of publications that people may have, and this factual feature story is one that's kind of in the middle, but it also can be that writing for the lay person or for the public that would be in a newspaper. And then we want to see the original copy of the article, so that draft Word document in PDF form, and then also a scanned copy or of where the final published article was. So that scanned copy, you might be pulling that off the web if it's a if it's a web-based journal article. So I mean, some of these have come from, we're trying to adjust as we go, because it used to be everything was in the newspaper, before the World Wide Web. And so some of these rules have carried over, but still are relevant because we still do have newspapers and magazines in print. So, okay. And then category newsletter, Ginger, was I going to hand over to you for this one or the next one? 7 or 8?
The next one, but
next one. Okay. So again, I just tried to throw in cute pictures in here to warm your heart as we go along. But so the newsletter, this is another one where it is a little different from the feature article. So reading those nuances, I think some people, like, we may think we know what a newsletter is, but it could be a blog, that could be a newsletter. So we've tried to encompass as much as we can within each category to allow for people to put those different pieces in. Okay, and then now I will turn over to Ginger to talk about the other categories. So just tell me when to advance, Ginger.
Sure, thank you. Just something to note with the educational video recording. Again, the length of the video, if it's longer than that 15 minutes that we're to judge, please indicate with the timestamps exactly when we're supposed to judge that in the abstract. And just another thing I circled to point out with these two is make sure that the member's contribution is clear. There seems to be, this is a category in my experience that has a wide variety of levels of professionalism, and it's nice to know exactly what the member or the submitter did. Next slide, please,
Throw in
Iris.
can I throw in a real
Oh,
quick
Yeah,
comment on
please.
that, just from being North Central Vice Chair? I've seen a lot of really good submissions that do indicate which 15 minutes to judge, but off and on, we see some that don't have the first 15 minutes, or at least, I mean, it doesn't say that they have to be 15 consecutive minutes, so maybe I'm pushing the rules a little bit here, but if you just designate 15 minutes and then not include the intro, it's kind of confusing. So for future reference, if anyone is submitting those, if there's no intro, maybe do a little bit more intro in your abstract.
Yeah, it seems to me like the full videos that are less than 15 minutes that aren't just a piece pulled out do better.
Yep,
That's
agree.
just how I've kind of played.
Yeah, thank you both. And
Yeah.
I just would echo, make sure that they have access to the URL that's submitted for this as well. Because
Yeah.
those cannot work sometimes.
I have a
What-
comment on this one too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Me and Daniel have talked about this quite a bit in the southern region, or at least in the Florida submissions that I see. We see a lot of like a recorded Zoom program where it's just them going through a PowerPoint and they're submitting that. Is there, I know here in Florida, we definitely, talk to our individual committees and just say, those are not our preferred submissions. Is there a way that that could be reiterated in the explanation of that, I mean, this is for like, it's not really just a recording of your Zoom video?
That's a good point. I mean, we could try to go there, because, again, these categories were kind of invented before Zoom, before we really were using Zoom so much. But I mean, you can imagine that you could have some amazing presenter and their Zoom presentation with their PowerPoint blows your socks off. So I don't know if we would want to tell people they couldn't do it. It could be that it goes into that, this is one where it would either go into this category as the recording, or it could go into the computer generated presentation with script. But yeah, I think that's a good point, and we'll definitely, kind of discuss that and what we think for that. So yeah, and then another nuance with this category, and I'll turn it back over to Ginger, is we have seen ads. Some people did like advertising for their program, some really beautiful, amazing, professionally done videos. But if it's not educational, it doesn't go in this category. We're not going to judge ads this way, but we could add a category if that's how we have to start, with reels and things like that. We maybe we need to go to that, for the event promotional package, you could have it in there. But yeah. Okay, I see Robin has a question. Go ahead, Robin.
So I'm just going to ask about the Zoom then recording videos. I have to admit that's where we put a majority of ours because there's really no other good category to put it in. So, and I understand what she shared about, but again, where do you put it? Because there's no way someone's going to talk and talk and talk and then put it under the generate PowerPoint generated and still have to develop a script. That's a lot because you're verbally saying it. And yes, I know you can do transcripts or have it transcribed and you can have it all written out or generate it for you through some type of program to do that. But I guess I don't feel that's the best spot either. So,
Yeah,
because it doesn't fit currently under there.
I think we probably would not take it out of here, but it just needs to be really exciting and interesting probably to win, so yeah, but we can kind of we can kick the can down the road on that, but I think it's a valid point both ways. So. Okay, I'll turn it back over to Ginger.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all. Please feel free to contribute and jump in and ask questions because this is my first year doing this, and I also feel that I see a fairly limited scope, so I appreciate the feedback and input from you all. Thank you. Next one, please.
It'll go.
Fact sheet, category 9. I don't have a lot to say for this, except just to reiterate that it should not exceed 4 page numbers. I feel like I get questioned on this every time because it's an extension publication, so we have to include all the statements that are needed. And it seems like so many times we write it a certain number of pages, and then when it gets converted into the PDF, our extra statements put it at like 4.5. Well, then it's exceeding 4 pages, so just keep that in mind. Anything else anybody wants to add? Yeah, I was thinking then when we get to that five page cutoff, or I'm sorry, 5 or more pages, then we're at the category of publication. And again,
I would just let you guys know that
Something.
you're not fighting a new battle in the page number thing. I was vice chair when David Morrison was the committee chair, and I've been through with Ron and the whole gang. We've been fighting what's a page? What does that mean? So the page number, I think, is your best route there. And if it, because of the legal things, turns into 4.5 pages, you now bumped yourself up. So number of page numbers, yeah, I think that's a good thing. So keep fighting the battle.
Thanks, because I think you're right. All those additions keep growing. The more branding we have to do. At least I see that again from my university. Yeah, so 5 or more pages, it becomes a publication. And again, with any of these, one other thing is make sure people actually submit the material. I found that at the state level, at least one per year, somebody wrote a lovely abstract and didn't include the material to be judged with it. Next slide, please.
I have a comment on those sections too, if you have a second.
Sure.
This is one that Florida goes back and forth a lot, is the fact sheets versus publications, and not just on the page numbers, but like the type of content that people are submitting. So for us, fact sheets are, we get one or the other. They're either a very like scientific kind of, text article that's really just text. So, like University of Florida has its own kind of like public facing journal almost that people can write documents for, versus like a fact sheet to me is, a 1 or 2 page document that I'm producing for my own individual program. It's not really like a peer reviewed, serious kind of thing. And so for us, when we get to that state level, it's really hard to judge those two comparatively, like a very scientific kind of knowledge-based document versus a graphic design heavy document, but they can't submit that scientific one anywhere else because it doesn't meet that 5 page plus limit for publication, although that's really the category it should be judged in because it contextually fits that category better. Is there a way that could be addressed? I don't know if any other states see that, but sometimes I see it on the national level as well, just on the difference of national finalists.
Yeah, I would welcome other comments, but I will echo that I have seen that sometimes a lovely peer-reviewed paper will be published and that's what they submit. And the judges, I had a judge comment on that it was very hard to score. While the paper was great, when you look at our scoring rubric, it really just didn't quite check all the boxes to score high enough. So again, other input, feel free to jump in.
We dealt with that back in the day as well. And some of the ways that we looked at it was part of that's up to the applicant and knowing what the scorecard looks like. So that's partly on you. If you submit a journal article that is very journally looking, you probably don't get all the fancy extra points for the extra things. With with the two of them having different page number requirements and those types of things, sometimes you get more of those educational publications that are 5 or more pages, looking more journal compared to the shorter fact sheets, and as long as that fact sheet kind of relates to a single subject and it's very targeted and focused that way, sometimes that got around it. But how many designations in different spots can you put things? Because we do have our journal for journal articles, if you would like to submit something that direction as well, is kind of how it was taken and viewed in the past. So just because it's in the past doesn't mean that has to run this way anymore if you guys wanted to change something. But there's how come every committee I'm starting to be on nowadays, or every group I join, I have historical knowledge? This is
Yeah.
starting to be a pain in the
There's value in that. Thank you.
You're the elder
Really-
statesman now.
Robin, what's with this historical knowledge stuff we've got going on these days?
And you're
We
old
appreciate
now,
it. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah,
reading
thank
this
you.
other comment. So I withdraw my comment that I made at the beginning of holding the comments to the end because I don't think it would make sense. I'm really glad you guys have all jumped in here. So just trying to read this. Yeah, I think we can just address this comment, this long comment in the chat to make that the audio recording instructions better. So yeah. Okay. Sorry, Ginger, back to you.
Oh, all good. All right. Website or online content. And the key here is in yellow. It should be publicly accessible. It doesn't require a password. Again, this is a battle we fight. So maybe it's if you're looking at a social media post, for example, the screenshot and then putting that on a document as well. I don't know that now that I say that, that's not publicly accessible though, is it? And then just the other thing I noted, again, in thinking about this, again, publicly accessible, I see this as different from learning module and notebook because that's does require a password when we move on to the next category. And I think the length, then from what I've observed, is typically much longer for the learning module in the next category. Any comments before? Yeah, it's fine to go on to the next slide.
I actually have something on category 11, the website online content. I've had a submission this year that was part of our overall SDSU extension website. And it was, I guess my question is define design and maintenance. So a lot of our universities, help us maintain our websites, but we put the content up on those websites, or what the content is going to be. We do not physically put it up. It has to go through our program, or we call the LITO online platform that we submitted into our technology people, and they put it up on the website. So, for instance, if I have a livestock water quality livestock website that's with the university. I don't technically upload things, but I provide the content. And if I want content to come down, they can take it down. Is that acceptable? I guess. I don't know for the online website and online content. I don't physically put it up and I don't physically take it down, but I provide the content. And if it comes down, if I want it down, I just request them to take it off. Heather and Connie, am I expressing that correctly? Sorry. I know you guys were both at the meeting that day.
Yeah, I think that
Yes.
was the discussion because it's like we're responsible for the content of some of our main focus areas, but we don't get to touch the design and where things go and the colors and that type of thing. But it's our information on a website, and that's the only website that we can have.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we might want to adjust the explanation there so that the abstract should say, in that case, that what the person did. That's usually what we want in the abstract. What was your contribution? We don't want people taking credit for something they didn't do. And so I think this one we can consider sort of rewriting this, for that consideration. When we go to whatever that earlier category was where we don't allow university branding, then we need to discuss, do those need to be similar, or can we tease that out so that because it is a different function there. But yeah, so that's a great point. We really appreciate that.
I'm
think-
pretty much fine as long as the abstract clearly states what they did,
Well,
Then
and I
we
think for
should-
judges, the grading rubric needs to, because like I remember one, I can't remember what category, because a bunch of them asked now for author contribution, but the grading rubric just says like, was the author contribution stated? And then it's worth like 15 points. Well, if that's all I'm judging, then yes, they stated it, but are you really judging how much they contributed? Or, we just need to be clear on the grading rubric that there are different levels of, I completely built and designed this website versus I provided the content and I have an IT team, and obviously we can't control what our universities are, but there definitely is a different level of judging there.
Do you remember which category it was that the abstract said that? Because most of them say where the instructions and format followed.
I'll have to go back and look. I think one of the categories I judged this year, I'm pretty sure in the grading rubric, it specifically said author's contribution, but I might just have been making that up. And
Well, it is in the instructions. So I think that's a good thing for us to review, is all those score sheets to make sure, and we did do that a couple years ago. I think Heather might have been involved in that too, making sure that the rubrics matched up
Yeah,
to
I
what
think the author contribution part was in the newsletter.
the
When we
newsletter.
blended individual newsletter and team newsletter, we wanted to make sure that the person submitting the team newsletter did stuff with the newsletter.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
makes sense. And I do think that's true for every category though. Even if it's a single author, if they're supported by IT and things like that. So yeah, good. Okay, well, I've made some notes here so we can make sure we'll pick this up again. Let's see, Robin, you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
I apologize. Yes. I know this creates a big logistical, huge nightmare, but at least with our university, which is FDSU, we don't have the ability to create our own website. And so that really kind of puts us out of the running for any type of opportunity, even though we're providing amazing content to that website, to that particular program area, but we can't do anymore. That almost puts us out of the running completely. And so, which I understand, but we don't physically or cannot, because our university puts those restrictions on us. And so is there like a category A and B, or like option A or B under, like, let's say category 11, category, and I know this is, I understand this may never happen, but option A is, university tech, and then option B is I provide all of the content and how things look and the design and the maintenance. Because like I said, I'll never be able to compete with someone that can physically create and develop their own website, because we can't do it.
Yeah, I
So
think that's where, thank you so much for that. I think this is where we would just say that you need to specify. So we don't have to create a whole nother category, just instead of saying the person submitting should be the person primarily, like it probably should say this, person submitting should be the person primarily responsible for the content, period. Please specify, the author's role for content design and maintenance or something like that, So I think, because we work collaboratively, whether it's, support from ITS or whether it's support from colleagues, we just want to know who did what, I think is more important. And then that way, if somebody did design a website, they would have that potential to, really shine in this category, but it wouldn't exclude other people's content. So I don't know. I'd like to hear from other committee members on this one, because of how we slice and dice. Anybody else? Ginger, this was, I wonder what you,
Yeah, I can empathize because we are very constrained as well. We can submit the content and request, we get to review it like every 2 years, so you have limited input, but you don't have the final say on it. That goes to, yeah, at a different level, so.
I think just including that in the abstract is so important. So if they can describe in the abstract what they contributed, why they can't contribute certain things, or what the final product or whatever is not because of the university, you can't do whatever. If that's explained in the abstract, you're still providing content. You're still providing what you want on there. So I don't think it's completely eliminating anybody in particular. You just need to describe what you contributed and why and how.
I think so. So we'll just try to revise these instructions, but also to Robin's point, like if you design a spectacular website and you're competing with somebody who only got to put up the content, it is sort of apples to oranges, you know? So, yeah.
This is
What is
another,
the
nothing is
criteria?
new under the sun. So we've dealt with
Daniel.
this before.
Yeah.
I agree, but one of the big things on the scoring card is overall appearance and ease of use, and we don't have control of that, you know, and so we're out those points right there on that score sheet. So
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's something we can't actually make a decision on right now, but I think these are really important points. So we'll make sure we address it in some way going forward. Okay, Ginger, let's go to category 12.
Thank you. The thing that I'll point out with this category is, again, what's in yellow, that these materials can be on different media. And we have seen this, for example, the ones that I have seen are a lot of times online courses would fall under the learning module, or it may be a correspondence course. So just keep in mind, it could be different types of media. And then the other thing I'd like to point out also is, if it's something that is a hard copy and has to be mailed, just remember to build that time in to allow as we go through the different steps in order to get it by mail. Any discussion with this one?
Maybe
And this
just
is
an
what
whoops,
Right.
sorry, Robin.
just
You
one
go.
question. So if you have a printed book, if it's printed, could they potentially just scan it and make it a PDF copy? I know it's not as cool and as pretty because you won't be, have a spiral bound on it. It won't be this nice glossy or hard printed, but that would take away the need to have things mailed. It won't look near as pretty, but it would have the content. Yeah, exactly,
I
that right
think
there.
This is the South Dakota winner, right? It was really
Yeah,
good.
and that's what I was talking, it won't, it's super cool. It's spiral bound. It has really nice pages and et cetera, but it did have to be mailed because it is a print only type deal.
Yeah, let's hear what Heather has to say and then we'll.
Oh, I was just gonna add, to make sure that they're including the password if they have something online, just make that addition to that writing part, because we've had some that would come through that here's the URL but no password, so no score.
Yeah, for sure.
Or even just saying that a generic login should be created, because I know I had one in this category that I won, and I created a generic login that all of the judges use, and that way they didn't have to create their own account on that platform, especially if it's like a paid for platform or something. And that makes it stay anonymous to where you don't know who your judges are.
Yeah. Good points.
The less trouble that has to be gone to be gotten into it, the better.
Yeah. Well, and in the Western region, we did have one that got mailed, and it was just something that could have been a PDF. Like there was nothing. It was just it was just a printed copy, but I did win in this category, and we had a whole team that had put together, we had put together a whole binder over a course, a beginning farmer rancher course. And so, having that physical copy was important, I think, for, the way we had slotted things and organized things. So it just depends on what it is. I think that example from SDSU was a good one, Robin, that, you do want to get the paper copy in your hands because it can make a difference to the judges. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I made sure anything that was a paper copy, we had multiple copies of it, and all the judges got to physically touch it and look at it. So,
yeah,
even playing field as much as possible.
Yes, exactly. So, okay, Ginger, did you have any more on this one?
I do not.
Okay, I think we have one more category.
Yep. Yep. And this is for our bound book. So I have only had one submitted in my time as our state chair. I've only seen one, and it was very clearly a book. Like, it was a hardbound publication. So I would, again, just echo, it's bigger than our publication category, and again, make that allowance for mailing times and consider that. The one that I dealt with, I submitted a request because the author only had like 2 copies, and she really wanted it back if we could get it back. So that's just another consideration.
Oh, that's a great point. If you sent me something to judge and it was a physical copy and you want it back, let me know. So,
Thanks. And I think that's it for categories. So
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. So we've been going through questions and comments. As we've been going, I've taken some notes on these things that we can kind of pass on to. Well, I'm not exactly sure what our next step is because we're missing our national leader here, but we'll make sure we do carry these topics forward. But okay, Robin? Yes, please go ahead.
Me again. In the feature story or the personal column, could they put a URL versus you could either provide a final published article, like a PDF of it, or a URL if it's completely an online newspaper, for instance, instead of printing it off.
yeah. So, in my opinion, as long as you've got, your original Word document on there, so we can see the original, where it's published can certainly just be a URL. I think that would be fine. Let's look at the specific wording though.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back there. Sorry.
Category 6.
We're almost there. Hey, here we go.
As long as it's not behind a paywall, because most of our newspapers, for say,
That's
you have to
true.
have a paid subscription to access any content online.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. So maybe it has to have that type of wording in there. But if it's not, I mean, it's fine. It's easy to print off and create a PDF and put it up. But I just didn't. There was other options for URLs, so I didn't.
That's not a bad idea. If a URL is possible to Iris that may be a suggestion we want to make to the board, because all these suggestions that we have are wonderful, but we can defend them to the board, but ultimately the NACAA board, looking at UConn, has to approve these, or they just kind of go into the air and disappear.
The only benefit to a physical like PDF, whether it be a physical printed thing or just a PDF you created from the digital page, is that's good for historical records. Because if your newspaper archives things every 2 years or whatever to save on storage, then other people won't be able to access it from the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good points. Good points. Alicia, did you have another comment, or was that the comment?
No, I brought this up last year with Brittany, and I'll probably bring it up every year till we potentially get it, but I would love a category for a physical display. I know a lot of us in Extension build, physical displays. We put up tables at events and all kinds of stuff, and there's nowhere for us to be recognized for, a lot of the amazing things, that physical items that we create like that. I just think it would be a great opportunity to showcase, really the only thing you have is, maybe a search for excellence, and it has to be a really extensive thing for that. So
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I feel like Ron would have an answer for that as to why we haven't done it before, but Heather, I don't know, can you stand in here? I'm
Would you
not
like
saying we
some
shouldn't.
historical answer? The problem that we had when I was on the committee was it being a communication type of thing. It wasn't published. It wasn't, I mean, because technically your communication is you um, giving your word out, and the things that you put into your booth maybe could go, if you've got a copy of your fact sheet could be entered, unless there was kind of thinking on the fly as I go, like we've got our promotion packet category. If you had your 4 things that you wanted to be judged as a communication piece that weren't already somewhere else, that you wanted to go into category 15, 14, whichever number, for displays, and you want me to judge the banner bug that you created and the fact sheet that you used there, the postcard that you used to pre-promote that you were going to be at the event, and maybe a pencil that you had or something, I think we'd have to be kind of specific with what that addition would look like so that you're still using the communication pieces. Because like some of the things that came in that were really cool when I was on the committee, somebody had a tape measure. Was it a tape measure? But it had different educational components on grass growing type of, grazing things, but it was part of a tape measure. Well, it was a great educational tool, but it didn't fit our categories very well anywhere. So is it a communication piece or is it a really good handout that you came up with to put something together like that? So that was one of the things and the reasons why when I was on the committee that it didn't get brought up to be added. So if there's a desire by this committee to change that or add that or say, yeah, that is communication because we're doing all this stuff, now you just have to build it and see if they come.
Yeah, great comments,
And
Heather.
you have to
Thank you.
finance it too. You got to find, if you take a category away to help provide the funding for the winners and those types of things. Or if you have a new sponsor coming in that's willing to step up an additional category worth of funding. So there's some backstory and ideas for you guys to think about. Not
Yeah.
trying to beat the thing down or the idea down, but just the reasons why it hasn't in the past.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious from Alicia if there were pieces that you could think of that would go on that table that wouldn't be eligible for one of these other communication categories. Like
well, I mean, I wasn't just thinking, I mean, I was just saying like a tabling event or something, but I mean, I physically build a lot of like ag awareness exhibits, and some of them I've been able to submit for the Ag Awareness and Appreciation Award or whatnot, but they are like very interactive components or educational pieces. And sure, I could submit my fact sheet that went along with it or something, but it's really not the exhibit itself. And, like for example, I'll give one. I did a fire festival this year and I built a box that people could create their own prescribed burns and all these components of it. And they were actually like able to light live fire there in the box and yada, like there's no category to submit that in. I mean, it sort of fits in ag awareness and appreciation, but for an award of that size, you need a lot of data and, backing and, it's really, that's more for a more large extensive program. So we do all these really cool things and that are physical exhibits and not able to get recognition for any of those. So just a thought. I mean, I really appreciate Heather's feedback. I think that if all of the comments that we've addressed today, I think if we could get feedback from those, like from the committee or even just directly to the people that ask those comments, because I've attended this meeting every year. We bring up all kinds of comments and I never hear anything back about where those brought up to the board, where's their feedback, or, I really appreciate Heather saying that, because no one has ever said, hey, Alicia, that physical exhibit thing you wanted, the board struck it down because of this, and this reason. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get Connie to speak to, like, shed some light on what the board does when the chair brings our suggestions up.
Yeah, and I think so we're right at 1 o'clock, so we'll end soon. But I think that maybe having at the beginning of this meeting next year, we have a recap at the beginning, or maybe through those categories. So, we did have a little bit of I feel like Brittany would have probably done that, but it's just that since, the timing, the way things worked out, we, the baton got handed off pretty lightly. So we didn't drop the baton, but, so thank you, Alicia, for that feedback. And I think that's great, for us too. And then the other thing to know is that, we come on to this committee, and by the time you figure out what you're supposed to be doing, your term is over. So, this is my final term. I've been on for 3 years or 3 terms. I think this is my 3rd term. And so it just is, there's all these moving parts and people turn over and all that. So we're so glad we had Heather today for that as well. I still, through this whole year, wanted to ask Ron a bunch of questions, and I just didn't because I knew he wasn't the national chair anymore. But, so anyway, there's a learning curve for us. So thanks for your patience on that. But any final comments before we wrap up? Okay, well, we'll ask, were you asking Connie to comment right now, Daniel, or were you just saying for future?
If we have a minute, I'd be interested.
Yeah. Connie, are you available to come on and talk about that process? I know that's kind of a pop quiz for you.
Yeah, it's all right. Hopefully y'all can hear me. With the board, you take this workshop, you go in with your committee, the new committee kind of reconvenes, revisits it. You provide the write-up to your council chair. So when the council chair asks, they take that information and they present it to the board. Generally, it's like before winter board, right? Before that, county agent would be released with all of the communication and award information. And so the council chairs will go through every recommendation, everything for board action to the board, and will present it to the board that your committee has put through. So when you submit that paperwork, Daniel, to Johnny as your council chair, you will need to be very clear on that, because if it's not clearly written as to what you want to present to the board, then it doesn't get presented ultimately. And then the board, the council chairs will take that to EPC first. So it'll be the vice president and then the 3 council chairs that will review any of the board action and items to see really what is worth pursuing and bring that forward to the board. So if there's a lot of questions or consternation off of the EPC, then they'll come back to the committee and ask for more information, or they'll tell you that it's not going forward because of X, Y, and Z. And then they will, whatever does go forward, they'll bring it to the board, and the board does have that ultimate decision capacity as to what they accept or not accept. In the form of communications, if you'd add a new category, you're going to take something away. If you add the new category, it's always possible to add a category, but then it comes that whole financial funding piece. Before we can say we can for sure do it, we have to have, the funder and the ability to cover that back end if we're going to go with those financial awards. And so there is that layer of committee structure. So like the vice president oversees all of the committees, the council chairs, truthfully, the chairs and vice chairs, but the committee structure, and is the voice between the board and you as committees. So I think that's the quick explanation of that. If you have more questions, happy to visit about that.
No, that was really good. I had never heard that totally explained. So.
Yeah, the only thing I might add, if I could, is Connie laid it out really well. Just be as descriptive as possible as to why you're wanting to make the changes that you are, because obviously when you're sitting in a room with 13 people, without that detail, they don't understand what it is the reasonings behind. So just be as descriptive. I mean, if it's 1 or 2 paragraphs saying, here's exactly why we're wanting to do this, because we've had this, this, and this happen to us, and this would solve the problem. I think if they can understand how it will solve the problem, you've got a much higher percentage of it going through. But if the detail's not there, then it's just going to get delayed and they'll come back and ask for more information, or they'll just flat out deny it. So just be
Yeah.
descriptive as much as you can.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
And then I
Great.
was just going to say, especially for the communications committee, because I know it was discussed last year to have some new guidelines written up. But then also you need to have a scorecard to follow your new guidelines. And we were told that we could provide that the guidelines would be written up, but they were not going to have time to do a scorecard. So it didn't seem in the board's preview to go through accepting the new guidelines if there was no scorecard that it was going to be judged against. So like, just be very clear and thorough within that explanation, because you all will understand what you're wanting and why you want it, but we got to pretend that no one else does. And
Right.
so that report and that council chair comes in very handy. And especially with this year for the communications, if the voting delegates approve, Daniel will be your incoming committee or council chair. So he'll have a better understanding because he's coming from this committee, but you can't rely on that all the time.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, we're just 6 minutes over, so we'll end here. And thank you everyone for your participation and great comments and questions and information. So this has been really the best meeting we could have hoped for. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Iris. Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you.